Hey everyone, what's going on? It's 2 Minutes to Review. It's Matt.
And it's Zach.
Our album review show, if you haven't joined us, longest album review in under 2 minutes wins the little game here. And I would say this is probably one of the most anticipated albums of this year. It's been quite some time since we've heard from them. You click the picture. We're going to be reviewing the brand new one from Ghost, Impera.
That's right. And, you know, if you recall, if you've been with us since day one, then you know how much we really do enjoy and like Ghost. We actually even named their last album, 2018 Prequel, one of our favorite albums of that year. And, you know, there's just something so fun about Ghost. There's the element of mystique and the, you know, if you like theatrical shock rock, you know, they're not as gory as someone like Grar or even as shocking as Alice Cooper, but there's always like, there's something about them that just draws you to them, and they've become one of the big bands in hard rock right now, which despite kind of their gimmicks, I mean, they really have found a fine balance between gaining more fans and also kind of just getting critics to be like, you know what, there's something here. And I think, Matt, you put it perfectly. When we saw Ghost open for Iron Maiden back in 2017,
A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Far, far away. People like to go to concerts. When we saw them live open, I mean, I was already a big fan of them, but this was your first time discovering him, and he said, this is Muppet metal.
He sounds like a Muppet live. I can't get over it.
And you know what? That's why I love it, probably, because there's definitely a little bit of campiness, but they own it.
But
at least in the past albums they did.
A lot of it is on his voice, like everything else, like the visual elements and, you know, what they do in a performance, that's perfectly fine, but his voice is just so honky. It sounds like a Muppet. That's the best way to put it.
And if you're like me, you're sold. But so, yeah, and as Matt mentioned, there's definitely been, you know, a lot of interest in new music from Ghost, especially as they're really starting to make a bigger jump to trying to play bigger arenas in America, trying to get more radio play going. You know, they've already got the critics on board. Now they're trying to get more mainstream attention. So, yeah, I mean, I think not much more to say than other than what do we think of Impera. So I'm looking forward to sharing my thoughts. But first, a real quick special shout out to Lucky 13 Beard Co.
Yeah, if you haven't heard, well, we put out a beard balm and oil with our friends over at Lucky 13 Beard Co. They always get you to look good, feel good, and smell good. But since we collaborated with them, we're going to make it smell a little bit epic as well, because our beard oil that we've managed to collaborate on is in tribute to the late, great Lemmy from Motorhead. And if you know anything about Lemmy, what would he represent? Well, besides rock and roll, because rock and roll, you can smell like a bunch of different things, and some things are not pleasant, but we got it down to 4 things. Bourbon and cola. Obviously, a little JD and Coke is a favorite drink of all time. Leather, obviously, and tobacco. So if you put those 4 things in a bottle, that's what it smells like, and it smells so good. It's my favorite smelling beard oil, and it's not just because it's ours, but because Ed put together something incredible. So if you've never heard of Lucky 13 Beard Co., well, here's your chance to try it, and we're giving you a chance to take 10% off of your order. So go to Lucky13, the number, beardco.com, and then you go in there, you click on products. The Lemmy is the first thing you're going to see. You give it a click, throw it in your cart, throw anything else you want in your cart, and use the code EFP10 at checkout, 10% off your order. You can't beat that.
You really can't. It's my turn to try to beat you at this little game called 2 Minutes to Review. Under 2 minutes.
Good luck.
I'm going to be bold. I'm going to go first. I know, shocker. Count me down.
3, 2, 1, go.
So you got songs like Spillways, Griftwood, Hunter's Moon, and Watcher in the Sky that really just are earworms. And they follow they have some modern hard rock elements to it, but they follow the 80s pop metal spirit that Tobias, the mastermind behind it, and Ghost have started to really started to embrace it with Prequel. There's no doubt that they're just catchy, fun, a little cheesy, but you're gonna have them stuck in your head. Then you got songs like Call Me Little Sunshine and Respite of the Spital Fields that, for those who don't like how poppy they've gone, This is the satanic, doomy kind of sound that you remember from the first album. So, they just reminded you, like, don't worry, we're still satanic and evil, don't worry. But then you got some surprises, like Caesarion. It sounds like Ghost's attempt to write a Van Halen song. And then you got songs like 20s that sounds like they're trying to write a System of a Down song. And, we all appreciate bands trying to evolve, but it just feels weird to hear these two songs. And it just throws you off as if there's no clear direction on this album, which is very uncharacteristic for a band like Ghost, because they're so known for being theatrical, and we have a clear vision of where the story is going, even when they have little quirkiness and surprises thrown in. I mean, again, I guess that kind of leads to my big qualm here, is that it's a solid album for sure, but it's just, there's something lacking. There's a bit of mystique lacking from this album. And I don't know if it's because maybe it's just the production's actually pretty damn clean and good, or maybe it's just time that, Papa Emeritus try something different. There's no denying this is a really good, fun pop album. And I have no doubt that I am probably going to end up listening to this album multiple times throughout the months. Again, earworms. But unlike the last few albums, Impera didn't leave me wowed. It didn't leave me rushing to the altar for the chance to bow down at the glorious Papa Emeritus's feet. And I think that is what makes this slightly disappointing.
And we have a time. Star rating out of 5.
3. 3
Okay.
out of 5. Again, catchy ass pop metal album. But, I think and I also, a big shout out, because normally Tobias does a lot of the instrumentation himself, or just, he is Ghost. He, on stage he's Papa Emeritus, but Tobias is Ghost. And he will have guest sessions here and there, but for this album in particular, he actually brought Frederick from Opeth to play guitars. And it definitely gives the guitar playing an edge. Not that the solos or the guitar work wasn't great on the past albums, but there's just a little bit more technicality and like just sharpness with this album. And I think you can owe that to Frederick. But I would also say, I hate to compare this to the past albums, but if Prequel sounded like the soundtrack to being en route to a spooky, mysterious, evil cult that was meeting at midnight in the 80s, this album just simply sounds like it was in the 80s. It's missing that otherworldliness, if that makes sense. But with that said, it's still a fun pop metal album, which is better than most bands, but for a band that really always took the imagery to the next level, even with the sound, it's definitely lacking, in my opinion. So 3 out of 5.
Fair enough.
So, my good pal Matthew, are you ready?
I guess I have to be, considering you just gave your review. So let's do it.
I mean, I can buy you some more time if you like. I can go into the history. Now you should go. 3, 2, 1, go.
This album definitely, for me, sounds way different than a traditional Ghost album. Immediately, I can pick up that this album is based heavily in the late 70s and the 80s, and it was kind of a shock for me. Well, I guess, Ghost is shock rock, so I guess this is, kind of shocking that they went down this path, because a lot of the influence of this album I can probably pinpoint squarely on Blue Oyster Cult's Fire of Unknown Origins album. And if you listen to both of those albums, you're gonna hear that there's a lot of similarities between these albums. But what was really even more shocking for me is the first real song that we get off of the album is Caesarion, and it sounds surprisingly upbeat for Ghost. It kind of has like a big classic rock intro, a la like AC/DC or Blue Oyster Cult, like I said, or even like a Boston, like way back in like Foreplay Long Time. So from there, there's also songs like Spillways and Call Me Little Sunshine that make you realize still why Ghost is so good. And I really think that Call Me Little Sunshine was a great choice of a first single. And I was really surprised to see that Hunter's Moon found itself a home. That was originally on the Halloween Kills movie that came out back in 2021. Now for the downside. The song 20s. Why? It sounds like a freaking show tune. And I don't understand why they did it or what they tried to do with it. And even It Kills Darkness at the Heart of My Love, which is a great song in its own right, but because it's a follow-up and the way that the song is structured, it really feels like that's also trying to be a show tune. So I really think that that song kind of was another casualty of placement on the album. Would have been great probably somewhere else. But then we take it to the last track on the album, Respite on the Spitalfields. And this really answers a question that I don't think anybody ever had, which is what would 80s Whitesnake sound like if it was more dark and demonic? So overall, for me, this album is crisp, it's clean, it's got all the ghost elements that you want. It just takes me slightly back, and when it misses, it really misses hard.
Time locked in. Out of 5 stars, what are you going to give this one?
3.5.
Ooh, so you liked it a half more than me.
Yeah, it's really solid. Like, you can't fault it too much, except for when you hit 20s and Darkness at the Heart of My Love. I don't get it. I understand that they're campy. I understand that they're shocking, but I never really considered them to do a show tune. And the orchestra intro on 20s really took me by surprise, and not in a good way. So I was so taken back by it that it actually affected the next song, because the next song sounds like it could have been that same sort of show tune-ish feel. But I'm glad they found themselves, getting back on track as we started getting toward the end of the album with the last two songs, Griftwood and Respite on the Spitalfield, because if they ended on that, I'd have a really sour note, and I probably would have given this. I think I still would have given it a 3-star, but I don't. It would have definitely hindered my thought on this album, my feelings.
It's interesting. We both kind of harked on how off-putting, how off-put we were with 20s, but I didn't really. If anything, I actually thought it was less show tuning and more just them again, like kind of trying to sound like a bit like System of a Down or even Mr. Like just the weird like circus kind of feel to it. That and it felt like you're listening to this song, and even the I can't keep mispronouncing that, the first proper track, the one that Kassarian, and it's like you're listening to it, it's like, is Ghost having an identity crisis here? Like,
yeah, that's what when I said surprisingly upbeat, I heard it, I'm like, where's this coming from? Like, yeah, Ghost isn't upbeat. Like, I think the first time that I heard Ghost be upbeat maybe was on Rats or Square Hammer.
But even that had like a sense of darkness to it.
It did.
It's almost like those two. It's almost like those two tracks, the ones that were like feeling like really hampered the album. Like I almost envision like those were songs that Tobias wrote for a different project. And as he was recording this album, he was like, "Crap, I need 2 more songs. You know what? I can make these into Ghost songs." And it's just like they really don't fit, not only on this album, but in Ghost's catalog in general.
I'm also going to point to this, that the album cover feels extremely death metal-ish with the way that Papa Emeritus is displayed on the album cover. It looks like, if you threw like his fingers and all of like the lines and the way that it's drawn, just like on a screen, somebody would try to find like an extreme death metal band's name inside of like all of that intricacies that they have on the album cover, and that doesn't match at all to the music on the album.
I kind of think I'm glad you kind of mentioned the album though, because I feel like with each Ghost album, there's an interesting build up. It helps kind of lead up to excitement for the album. Like they start implanting little elements of storytelling, like, oh, the new Papa is about to be introduced. They just do a great marketing job at making you hyped up for this album. And I feel like maybe I'm just overthinking this. Maybe I'm just haven't paid as much attention as I probably should. Like I know they had the ceremonious of the Cardinal becoming Papa Emeritus but like I feel like there's just been a thud in regards to the build up. It's just been, okay, you heard a song that we released for a soundtrack, and now here's the album coming out in March. and here's a single. I know Tobias has done interviews in the past, but I feel like they've said, you know what, we don't need this curtain anymore. Like in the past, they've like, all right, well, we can reveal a little bit behind the curtain, but here's still the show. Now it's just like, I don't feel like setting it up. Just whatever. Here's a view behind the scenes.
Yeah, I definitely can see that, and I definitely think that there is just something weird and off. I don't want to say off-putting, but just weird about this album cycle. I guess maybe this is, about maybe the times that we live in now, and maybe there's some factor in there that's, taking this down a bit from, the normal pomp and circumstance. But I really think that, for it not having that pomp and circumstance and maybe letting the music stand on its own, it is solid. And it is, it does kind of remind you why Ghost is so good. But then, like I've been saying, when it misses hard. So.
And I think you even just said it, like the music's good. And, while it definitely shows elements of what makes Ghost awesome, I have to think, if I didn't go into this, like expecting, like going into this going, new Ghost album. Like if this was a completely new band, I'd be like, oh, this is really solid. This is really enjoyable. I think it's just because I'm so familiar of Ghost at this point that my expectations are a little bit higher. And I don't want to say they didn't deliver on this one, but definitely feel like I'm missing something.
I
Not
don't
to take a quote from one of our other shows.
But I don't think you're missing something. I think what's also kind of taking back from this album a little bit is that normally you can listen to Ghost and you don't need to point your finger and say, oh, they're trying to sound like this, or oh, they're trying to sound like that, because it just sounds like Ghost. For me to come in here and say that they have, elements of Blue Oyster Cult in their music, and you can hear it, or maybe they're trying to do something a little ACD-ish or Boston-ish, I think I don't want to say it's a step back for them, but it's just kind of like, huh.
Well, it is though, because their first album.
It's like, are you running out of ideas though? You know?
And I think exactly that. I mean, their first album, what was the huge selling point for a lot of, besides even like for those who weren't even familiar with the whole gimmick of the band. I remember I was an intern for a music marketing company at the time, and also writing for Metal Insider, starting to become an assistant editor there. And my editor at Metal Insider, his selling point to me for Ghost was, imagine old school Blue Oyster Cult meets Merciful Fate. And I'm like, that's interesting. And it was dead right. And then from there, they evolved it to be something a little bit more unique to them. Mm-hmm. So, and then not only to your point that there are songs that sound like, Blue Oyster Cult, but it's not even like, the whole album has a sense of this and that. It's individual songs. I'm like, okay, that's Whitesnake. I think you're right. That is Whitesnake. Oh, you're right. And the fact that you can pinpoint on a single song where some of the influences are, I don't know.
Well, so the funny thing about the Whitesnake song is that's Respite on the Spitalfield. And when I said it answers a question that I don't think anybody ever asked for, which was what would Whitesnake sound like if it were more dark and demonic. The moment that I heard, and when the album comes out, you'll be able to hear this too, there's when they do like that slight breakdown in the middle of the song, it immediately hit me like, this is Still of the Night. And I don't know if that does anything for anybody else, but I was like, whoa, wait a second. Is Ghost really going down this road? And they're really taking these songs to the 80s and really leaving it in the 80s and not like bringing it back to what makes Ghost Ghost, because it is just immediately that ultra recognizable breakdown in Still of the Night.
Which, but again, as I mentioned in my review, Prequel definitely did show the band embracing their 80s influences for sure. This album sounds more like this could have been from the 80s, whereas like Prequel is like, all right, there's definitely 80 influences here. I could have totally heard Rats on an Ozzy 80s album for sure, but like there's something there that still makes this different. And here I'm just like, it's good, but I'm like, I think it goes back to, for the next album, from a creative standpoint or a storytelling standpoint, I think it would really benefit Tobias to shake things up. Maybe as much as we love the imagery of Ghost, maybe there's a way to transform the characters into something else. Maybe like something needs to change because it's slowly starting to become not predictable, but it's slowly losing its flair and excitement.
Yeah, there's no more shock to it when you're starting to sound like Whitesnake or, Blue Oyster Cult.
Yeah. But with that, I mean, we all know that our opinions don't really freaking matter. What really matters is who got the longest review in under 2 minutes. Matt, I already have a feeling I probably didn't win. But Matt, what was my time?
You came in at a Zach typical time of 2 minutes, 23 seconds.
Whoa.
Whoa.
So you also did not come in under 2 minutes. In fact, you also came in at 2 minutes and 23 seconds. I kid you not.
Wow.
We both came in at the exact same time. So sure, we're both losers, but how cool is that?
I don't think we ever had a tie like that.
That might be the most spookiest thing regarding a Ghost album right now, more so than the Ghost album itself, which might say a lot. But you know what? Let us know what you think. Let us know on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at Epic Footnote. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel to hear more podcasts like this, as well as check out some cool videos, including my video of me showing off my blue and white translucent vinyl copy of Ghost's debut album. Check it out on our YouTube channel. Also, once again, thank you to Lucky 13 Beard Co. Go to lucky13beardco.com. Use the code EFB10 to not only get a 10% discount off of your order of amazing beard oil products, but also of our own Lemmy-inspired beard oil. Also, major shout out to Rootless Coffee. They are a great coffee blend roaster out of Michigan. They not only produce some really interesting flavors of coffee, but they actually collaborate with a lot of different artists, comic book writers, fellow podcasts, or even wrestlers to create their own blends. In fact, for those who are also huge AEW fans like me, one of their newest, most shiniest, coolest, spookiest wrestling signings was the very cool, very evil Dan Housen. They've worked with him on a lot of different blends. So go to rootlesscoffee.com, use the code EPICROAST, all caps, to get 15% off of your order of some delicious coffee that really breaks free from boredom. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you maybe got riled up enough to leave some comments for us. And we hope you join us for another episode real soon.